There is an island so green, its people are said to have 40 words for the color, where cliffs fall 700 feet straight into the Atlantic, and stone walls older than the pyramids stitch the fields together. This is Ireland, a small country that once watched more than half of its people disappear, into the ground and onto the ships. And on a narrow lane beneath all that endless green, a postman reaches across a stone wall and lowers the morning's letters into an old milk churn. Because in this townland, the churn is the postbox. What follows is one ordinary day in that country, from the first kettle of the morning to the last tune after midnight. A day in a land that was emptied out and is slowly, quietly filling up again. "10 minutes down the coast from that quiet lane, Ireland simply stops. The Cliffs of Moher rise straight out of the Atlantic and run for roughly 14 kilometers. A dark wall standing up to 214 meters above the waves, 700 feet of sheer edge with nothing between the grass and the water but falling. Around 1.5 million people a year come to stand at this rim, one of the most visited natural wonders in the country. Most of them go quiet within the first 10 seconds. The scale does that. Standing here feels like standing on the edge of the world. The wall is really a stack of pages. Around 320 million years ago, long before the dinosaurs, a vast river delta laid down layer upon layer of sand, silt and mud exactly here. Time pressed those layers into sandstone, siltstone, and shale, and the ocean has been carving the book open ever since. Read the cliff face, and the stripes run level as shelves. Each band a flood, a season, a vanished river with no name. The farmers' fields above end in a clean green line, as if the land had been cut with a knife. In a sense, it was. The knife was the Atlantic. It is still cutting. People have been coming here to feel small for a long time. In 1835, a local landlord named Cornelius O'Brien built a round stone tower at the highest point, mostly so that visitors would have somewhere to gasp from. It was one of the first pieces of tourist infrastructure in Ireland, and it is standing there still. Below the tower, the ledges roar. Tens of thousands of seabirds nest on the cliff face each summer, among them colonies of puffins, commuting past the railings like anxious little businessmen. And on the clearest days, you can see the Aran Islands lying out on the water. 3 grey stones this journey will reach tonight when the wool comes out. This edge is also where Ireland's weather earns its keep. The rain that soaks this coast feeds some of the richest grass in Europe, and the grass feeds a quiet miracle. Butter from this island of 5 million people is now the second best-selling butter in the United States. The only Irish food brand ever past €1 billion in sales. Rain, grass, cattle, gold. the whole equation of rural Ireland, written in water. But these cliffs are only the country's front gate. The real day begins behind them, on a narrow lane, where a small green van is already making its rounds. The lane is called a boreen, from the Irish word boithrin, a little road, and most boreens are older than anything that travels on them. 2 stone walls, a ribbon of grass down the middle, and just enough room for one small green van. The postman knows every gate on this stretch of coast. His round covers a few dozen households scattered between the village and the sea, and he has learned which dog barks, which gate sticks, and which widow waits by the window for the sound of his engine. The postal service he works for has been running these lanes since 1922, when a newly born state took over the mail from the British Post Office and painted the vans green. In places like this, the post is not only paper, it is a daily check that everyone along the road is still standing. When an old man on the route stops collecting his letters, the postman is usually the first in the county to know, and the kettle in the nearest farmhouse goes on before any official is told. It is raining, of course. Not hard. A fine, drifting mist that the Irish call a soft day, spoken with something close to affection. On this coast, it rains in some form on more days than not, and the people long ago stopped treating that as bad news. The rain is what makes the 40 shades of green possible, and the green is what makes everything else possible. The cattle, the butter, the hay, the postcard the country refuses to fully become. A farmer in a yard lifts a hand as the van passes. The postman lifts 2 fingers off the wheel, the full rural salute. Nobody stops. Nobody needs to. The conversation will happen anyway, tomorrow or the day after, at the shop counter or across a wall, because on a road like this, no one is anonymous and no one is alone. That is not a slogan here. It is the operating system, and it has been running longer than the state itself. By 7:30, the van has turned inland, and the first kettles of the morning are going on in kitchens all along this coast. Some of those kitchens, far to the north, are still speaking a language that very nearly disappeared, and that is where this day goes next. In the parish of Gaeltacht in northwest Donegal, a school bell rings across the bog. This is a Gaeltacht, one of the officially recognized regions where Irish is still the language of the kitchen table, not just the classroom. A child of about 8 stands at a wooden desk and recites a verse written in the 17th century. She does not know how old the words are. She only knows the words. That, in the end, is what survival looks like. Not a monument, not a museum case, but a small voice doing on a Tuesday morning what small voices here have done for 1,000 years. It nearly looked very different. In the schools of the 19th century, many Irish-speaking children wore a stick on a string around the neck. It was called a bata scoia, a tally stick. Every time the child spoke Irish, a notch was cut. At the end of the day, the child was punished according to the count. The cruelest part is that many parents supported it because they had decided, in a starving country, that English was the language of the ship ticket and the wage packet, and Irish was the language of the past. Then the Great Hunger fell heaviest on the Irish-speaking West, and the language lost 1 million voices in a decade. The dead were mostly Irish speakers, so were the emigrants. A language can survive poverty, and it can survive punishment. But it very nearly could not survive both at once. The map on the classroom wall shows what remains. A century and a half ago, Irish was the daily language across more than half the island. Today, the Gaeltacht regions cover a few green fragments along the edge, and just under 72,000 people speak Irish every day outside the school system. Yet the line is not falling everywhere. Irish language schools keep opening in the cities, filled by the children of parents who were never fluent themselves, but who want back what the tally stick took. Every road sign in the country carries both languages. Every child studies Irish through school. Most will lose it after the final exam, the way people lose algebra, and still, something holds. Nothing in this country is kept behind glass. A language lives at the kitchen table, or it does not live at all. In Cobh Harbour, it lives. The child sits down. The teacher never once corrected her. An hour and a half south, on Aran Island off the Mayo coast, the morning opens onto a hillside that explains everything. Along the southern slope of Slievemore mountain stand somewhere between 80 and 100 stone houses. The walls are intact, the doorways are intact, the roofs and the people vanished nearly 2 centuries ago. The last families left during the famine years, and Achill today holds roughly a third of the people it held in 1841. For generations afterwards, islanders still drove cattle up here in summer and slept in the old houses beside their animals, until even that faded within living memory. Nobody rebuilt the village. Nobody knocked it down either. In Ireland, the empty houses are simply left standing, and the whole country grows up learning how to walk past them. The hunger that emptied them has a name in Irish, and Gweedore Moor, the Great Hunger. In 1841, the island of Ireland held over 8 million people. Within a decade, roughly 1 million were dead, and more than another million had gone. The potato failed across Europe in those years. Only here did the failure become a catastrophe, and historians will tell you the difference was not the weather. In 1847, with the crisis at its height, the government closed the public soup kitchens and pushed relief back into the workhouses. The economist Cormac O'Grada, who has spent a career counting the dead, puts the final figure at about 1 million people. Across the West, you can still read the relief schemes written on the land. Starving men were paid in ration meal to build roads that led nowhere and walls around fields no one would ever plough. The administrators themselves, in their own letters, called them walls that enclosed nothing. The phrase was bookkeeping to the men who wrote it. Read today, it sounds like a confession. walls are still there, running straight up hillsides no animal grazes, and the bog beneath them has not moved in 170 years. And on a mountain road in South Mayo, beside the dark water of Doolin, a plain stone cross carries a date. On the 30th of March, 1849, hundreds of starving people were ordered to walk 19 kilometers through this valley to a hunting lodge to be inspected before they could keep their relief. They walked through the night. At the lodge, they were refused and sent back the way they came. A newspaper of the day counted 7 bodies by the roadside. Local memory has always counted far more. The cross does not argue a number. It only says, Doolin Tragedy, 1849. At noon, the cathedral bell rings out over a harbour in County Cork. Cobh climbs its hillside in rows of pastel houses, pink and blue and butter yellow, one of the most photographed waterfronts in Ireland. For 71 years, this town was called Queenstown, renamed for a royal visit in 1849. And under that name, it became the busiest door out of a dying country. Of the roughly 6 million Irish who left for North America between the famine and the middle of the 20th century, about 2.5 million departed from this one harbour. In the single year of 1847, the departures through this small town ran to many times the number of people who actually lived in it. In the worst years they left on vessels the world learned to call coffin ships, where fever and hunger finished what the blight had started, and some crossings buried one passenger in 5 at sea. In 1912, the Titanic paused here on this same water to collect her final 123 passengers. This quay was the last piece of Ireland that millions of eyes ever saw. If your family tree has a branch in Boston or Sydney or Liverpool or the Bronx, there is a fair chance it passed across these stones. The town understands that. Researchers here spend their days helping visitors trace a great-grandmother back to a townland the family had half forgotten. Americans arrive with a surname and a county and leave with a parish, a ruined gable, and sometimes a living cousin across a farm gate. Watch those meetings on the quay, and you understand that the famine has never entirely finished happening. It just changed into homesickness, and the homesickness became an inheritance. One Mayo child shows what the leaving did and what it made. Michael David was born in 1846, in the middle of the hunger. In 1850, his family was evicted and took the boat to Lancashire. At 11, working in a cotton mill, he lost his right arm to a machine. He came home a grown man, and in August 1879, in Castlebar, he founded the Land League, the movement that helped break the landlord system for good. The country that could not feed him got its fields back, partly because of him. Emigration took millions away. Now and then, it sent one back with a lever. By 3 in the afternoon, a small boat is pitching across 12 kilometers of open Atlantic off the Kerry coast, heading for 2 pyramids of rock that rise out of the sea like the fins of something enormous. The larger one is Skellig Michael, and balanced 700 feet up on its shoulder sits one of the most improbable places human beings have ever chosen to live. Sometime between the 6th and 8th centuries, a handful of Irish monks rowed out here, looked up at the bare rock, and decided it was exactly what they wanted. They cut 618 steps into the stone by hand. Near the summit, they raised a village of beehive huts, dry stone cells, corbelled so perfectly that they have kept out Atlantic rain for well over 1,000 years without a spoonful of mortar. A dozen men and an abbot at most, living on fish, seabird eggs, and whatever their terraced gardens could grow, preying on a rock at the rim of the known world. The community held on for some 600 years, until around the 13th century, the weather finally pushed the last monks ashore, and the silence moved back in. The world eventually noticed. In 1996, UNESCO listed Skellig Michael as a World Heritage Site, an exceptional witness, it said, to early Christian devotion. Then, in the mid-2010s, film crews landed. The island became Luke Skywalker's hideout in the new Star Wars films, and those beehive huts appeared on cinema screens on every continent. Monks who rode out here to escape the world ended up, 13 centuries later, in front of more eyes than any preacher in history. Visitor numbers are strictly limited now. The boats cross only in calm weather, and the puffins, tens of thousands of them in early summer, treat the entire heritage site as their apartment block. Stand at the top of those steps, and the lesson of this country comes into focus. The same island that lost 1 million people in a decade could also convince a dozen men that a bare rock in the ocean was worth 6 centuries of their lives. Endurance is the local art form. It was practiced here in stone, long before it was practiced in ballads and boarding passes, and it is still being practiced this evening in a very different landscape made of glass and steel on the far side of the country. "5 in the evening on the east coast. The Samuel Beckett Bridge crosses the Liffey in a single white arc, shaped like a harp laid on its side. Behind it, glass towers stand where cargo sheds used to rot. Within a couple of kilometers of this dock sit the European headquarters of Google, Meta, LinkedIn, Stripe, and TikTok. The country that once exported its people now imports the world's payroll, and by the raw numbers, Ireland is one of the wealthiest nations on earth. A workforce that speaks English, sits inside the European Union, and taxes gently has turned a damp island on the edge of the map into a filing address for half the internet. Here is the honest part. The wealth has not built enough homes. House prices rose by around 90% in the decade to 2024. The average advertised rent in Dublin has passed €2,400 a month. In a recent European survey, A third of Irish people said they were considering emigration because of housing costs, one of the highest shares on the continent. And so, in the year to April 2025, 35,000 Irish citizens left, many for Australia and Canada, while 31,500 came home. The suitcase, that oldest piece of Irish furniture, is back in the hallway. The country is building barely 30-odd thousand homes a year when its own central bank says it needs over 50,000. And the government's forecasters admit the shortage could take another 15 years to fix. A nurse and a teacher, 2 full salaries, can stand in a viewing queue behind 40 other couples for a 2-bedroom house an hour from work. Nobody in that queue needs the famine explained to them. Leaving as a solution is written into this country's muscle memory. But notice the second number. It is almost as large as the first, and it is growing. The great-grandparents left because staying meant hunger. This generation leaves because staying means a landlord's inbox, and most of them fully intend to return. The gap between those who go and those who come back has narrowed to a few thousand people. At the dock, the office lights will burn long past midnight. Across the river, a night bus fills with workers born in 20 different countries, heading home through a city their money helped build. Seven in the evening, on the opposite coast. Galway's Shop Street is a river of sound, a fiddler busking outside a pub that has stood on its corner since 1894. Students and fishermen and tourists moving through the same 100 meters of stone. Down by the water sat the old fishing village of the Cladder, which gave the world a ring, 2 hands holding a crowned heart. The hands are friendship, the crown is loyalty, the heart is love, and the motto underneath them all is simple: let love and friendship reign. Worn with the heart facing out, the wearer is free. Turned inward, the heart is spoken for. And mothers here still pass the same ring down to daughters the way other families pass down land. Half the diaspora wears one, which means the little village that vanished into the city now sits on hands in every airport on Earth. Galway is where the returning tide is easiest to see. Around 30,000 Irish emigrants now move home in a typical year, and 1 in 5 people living in Ireland today was born somewhere else. The pattern repeats in 1,000 small stories. A man like Alan Gleeson, interviewed by the national press, came home to Cork in 2024 after 25 years in Britain and found the place both completely changed and stubbornly the same. Others come back from Sydney with an accent on their children and a plan for a cafe, a farm share, a small design studio in a town their parents once called finished. They bring back skills, savings, and a particular look. The look of someone checking whether the door they left is still open. The GAA club takes them back mid-season. When a returning family rebuilds a house, neighbors still arrive unasked. The old word is methiel, the gathering of help, and it has outlived every economic crash since the scythe. The pub remembers the order, the county remembers the family, sometimes 3 generations deep, and the townland name still fits in their mouth. What they find hardest, most of them say, is not the changed country. It is realizing how much of themselves had been waiting here the whole time. It is. It always was. That is nearly the whole secret of this island, and the last stops of the day will prove it. Out on the rim of Europe. The three Aran Islands hold about 1,300 people between them, speaking Irish across kitchen tables within sight of the Atlantic that once cut them off from everything. On Inishmore, the largest of the three, a woman is finishing a sweater she began nearly 2 weeks ago. Tens of thousands of stitches of undyed wool, worked at night after the day's real jobs are done. The stitches have names: the cable for the fisherman's rope, the honeycomb for the bee and its hard-earned sweetness, the diamond for the small stony fields of the island itself. Her pattern book is a biscuit tin in the kitchen, pages in her mother's handwriting, and none of it has ever been published anywhere. You may have heard the famous story that each family kept its own secret stitch so that a drowned fisherman could be known by his jumper when the sea gave him back. It is a powerful story. It is also, historians agree, a piece of theatre, born in a 1904 play and repeated ever since. The truth is stranger and better. Aran knitting, as the world knows, it was largely invented around the 1890s, encouraged by a government board trying to put income into starving districts. The sweater was never a shroud. It was a lifeline, a way for an island with no landlord worth the name to knit itself out of poverty. The myth sells sweaters. The truth explains the island. The fishing that once paid for everything is thinner now. The traditional boats grow fewer each decade, and much of the catch in Irish waters is taken by larger fleets from abroad, a sore point the islanders will explain to anyone who asks, and a few who do not. But the wool still pays, the ferry still runs, and the lights along the island lane still come on one kitchen at a time. On the mainland, across 10 kilometers of black water, a fiddle case is being opened in Doolin. Back where the day began. Gus O'Connor's has stood in Doolin since 1832, and the music here was already famous when a radio crew arrived in 1949 to record a farmer named Micho Russell playing the tin whistle. The broadcast carried this village out across the country, and the world has been finding its way to Doolin ever since. What it finds tonight is called a saison. 3 musicians at a corner table, a fiddle, a flute, a goatskin drum. No stage, no tickets, no microphone, and a seat for any stranger who knows the tunes. Those are the entire rules, and they have needed no updating since the National Organization for Traditional Music was founded in 1951 to save all this from dying quietly. The fiddle sets off. The flute joins without a word being spoken. Nobody in the bar looks up, which is the highest compliment this room knows how to pay. The music is not a show here. It is the weather. On the counter, a pint of Guinness settles in black and cream over its traditional slow pour, close to 2 minutes, and nobody in the room would dream of hurrying it. Listen to the tune itself, because it has traveled further than anyone here. Melodies like this were collected into tune books in the 1890s, and then they sailed, in the steerage of the emigrant ships, to Boston and New York. They survived over there in dance halls, kitchens, and police band rehearsal rooms, while Ireland half forgot them. Decades later, they came home, carried back on records and cassette tapes by the grandchildren of the people who left. The music made the same round trip as the nation, and tonight it sits in the corner, buying nobody a drink, owning the room. And the nation, finally, has numbers to show for it. In 2022, the census counted 5,149,000 people in the Republic. It was the first count above 5 million since 1851. The country that was emptied is filling again, one returned name at a time. Sometime after midnight, the last tune ends and the door lets the night in. Out along the coast, the boreen is dark, the van is parked, and the milk churn on the wall is empty, waiting for tomorrow's letter. Ireland was never really about the castles or the cliffs. It is a place that lost half of itself, kept the kettle on, and left the light burning for whoever found the way back. The session will start again tomorrow. The door, as ever, is still open. If your family ever left Ireland, tell us in the comments which county they came from. The answers under videos like this one read like a map of the whole story. And if slow journeys like today's suit you, subscribing is the easiest way to keep a seat at the table.